I just said we were unmuting, Adam.
Sorry.
When I say we're unmuting, that's not an excuse for you just start whistling a merry tune.
Hello, everybody. No,
shh, I'm doing the intro. Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard for another well-orchestrated and disciplined roadmap stream. And this evening, we are joined by Adam Lucas, who is the head of the preservation crew. Adam looks after bringing additional functionality to routes that have already come out, and fundamentally bringing things up to spec with what you would expect to see from a recent release for Train Sim World. I'm also being joined by Matt Peddleston, who is the senior producer for Train Sim World 2, and he's here today to answer a few questions about the recently announced Rush Hour update that's coming out in the summer. Rush Hour pack, I guess. Release, let's say. The Rush Hour release that's coming in the summer. So there we go. I thought I'd do some introductions for a change. Just, because we've got probably more people than usual paying attention. So there you go. Now, to give you some guidance as to what's going to happen on this particular stream, no, we won't have any screenshots or video or anything like that from Rush Hour. It's still several months away from release, and therefore we haven't got much that we can show, and we're not going to show it anyway. This is first and foremost a Rush Hour stream, and that's what... No. This is first and foremost a roadmap stream. Yeah, someone will clip that. That's a good one.
Good start.
Hey, look, I'm trying to be effective and efficient and what have you. It doesn't always go well. But we're going to get through a few of your questions just to clear up any confusion that people have about Rush Hour. But before we talk Rush Hour, we will be talking roadmap. Matt, this is your opportunity to sit there and watch Adam sweat, or rather watch how the master does it. So first up, those of you in the studio will have noticed that Hamburg Lübeck has moved into next arrival. Now that means that normally it will come out before the next roadmap update, and that's what we're expecting. For those of you who want to know the actual date of the Hamburg Lübeck release. We're not supposed to do release dates on these streams because it doesn't go over well. But normally we'll give a release date about a week before launch. So we'll be confirming the release date this Thursday. There you go. That's really all you need to know. Okay. So that's moved up. I don't think that's really a surprise to anybody at all. Next up, we've got both Class 313 and Glasgow Cathcart Circle have both moved to upcoming. Now, at the moment, could be either or that arrives first. We're not entirely sure which one's going to arrive first, but they're both they're heading into the kind of the QA back and forth process at the same time. So it could be a while, but they're both coming along nicely. There we go. Adam, what have you been up to this month? Oh, actually, no, I'm going to do one more bit of news, and then Adam, I'll turn it back over to you. That's right, you can hang on. The good news is that both the Rapid Transit and Long Island Railroad's route updates, are done and tested. There you go, they're done. We are expecting them both real soon. We're expecting Rapid Transit to go first. Ideally, the ideal is that Rapid Transit will go out just before Hamburg Lübeck, and then Long Island will come out probably the week after, maybe the week after that. Take those dates with a pinch of salt. They're not 100% locked in, but that's the latest schedule we have. So you are really not waiting very long for either of those now. Other than the fact that you've been waiting for a while for them so far. There you go. That's the news. It's going to be worth it, I reckon. Adam, what have you been up to on your holidays?
So Rapid Transit has finished QA. Long Island has finished QA. Thank you, Sam, for that. That's great. Yeah. So yes, I'm really excited that we've had our feedback from QA. There were some issues, which is to be expected. We're not going to fix everything to perfection, although that obviously is the desire ultimately, but we won't get there because it's reality. So yeah, most of actually what I've been doing is just making sure those two pass through the process, feeding out any feedback we get, checking with our beta forum as well. There was some stuff that came up that was by design. So, for instance, there was a lot of bugs about the M7 and the M3, the lights going out when it got to a gap in the power rail. And I was reliably informed by our setup team that it's intended to do that. The power only passes between the A and B cars. It doesn't pass down the whole train. At least that's the state that it's in at the moment. Whereas also we have had absolutely great feedback on the timetable. Everything is stable. Everything's running. Really pleased about that. And the PIS system.
When you say feedback, what do you mean? So who have you had feedback from?
So it's been things like running with different DLCs installed. So whether you have the 182 installed or not, what do you see? Whether you have RUS ignored installed, what do you see? Right. And stuff like that. So making sure that when you install or don't have those installed, does the timetable operate correctly? And yeah, really cool. And the PIS system obviously updates based on that as well. So you don't see trains that are not in the timetable if they're not actually running. So yeah, that's really cool.
Okay, that's good. Do you want to do screenshots now, or do you want to do them in a bit? When's a natural time for it?
Get them, yeah. No, I think we should cycle them now.
Okay.
These were taken recently. Hopefully, the 4K-ness will come through if you have a 4K TV. So
it does matter. We're only streaming in 1080p.
Well, there you go. If you can get 4K out of 1080p, that'd be great. But yes, so here's a few samples of what the new timetable looks like. So yeah, maybe we could cycle a few more. Is it playing? There we go. It's playing through. So yeah, there's 4 again. Just a reminder to those that may not have watched previous. There's 4 different patterns that have been implemented: the S1, S2, S6, and S8 timetables. Now our route is based on 2017, so there is a station that isn't featured on our route that obviously is in the real route now, and some of the rolling stock used has changed since this time that we developed the route. So some liberties were taken to obviously maintain the stock that is available for the route, but yeah. That gives a good indication now, and really pleased with the tech. We helped fix some of the bugs. Some new bugs found with the passenger information system when we were trying to populate, say, the stations off the route.
Right.
So what we call virtual stations. So this means when the player has reached the extent that the section they can drive, the train will still show that it's going to stop at a number of stations, even though it's obviously disappearing off stage, as it were. So that's really, really cool. I was really pleased with that. And then obviously all these will feed back into more of the main team development. So really pleased to be able to help them move forward as well. So that's really cool. Great teamwork amongst all.
I'm just going to jump just for a moment. Hetman, we're not going to show the game this evening. That's not what we do. On these streams, we don't show anything off particularly. Those screenshots were a rarity. Rather than anything else. Instead, we just go through the roadmap and we discuss the state of the game that it's in right now and what developments are going on behind the scenes. If you're here hoping to see gameplay, you might as well bail now because you're not going to see any. Instead, you might get a bit of behind the scenes stuff. But I've not seen you before, and based on your comment, you were expecting some gameplay. So just to let you down, well, not necessarily gently. But there it is. Okay, good. So Long Island Railroad and Rapid Transit, both of their releases are coming up. Now, the 182, the DBBR 182, was due to come out alongside the Rapid Transit updates. What's going on with that?
So we're running into some art issues with the LZB implementation. So we had some great help with the setup side and the functionality. That is all up and running, and it's great. It works on the HUD, so if you have that displayed. But as you know, or maybe you don't if this is your first stream, the preservation crew have been down one team member for the last couple of months. We haven't had a train artist, and therefore I didn't have anyone to work on the rail vehicle art. And it is very different artwork and practices between the environment team, which I do have an artist, and the rail vehicle team. So
do you have a new one now?
We do, yeah. He started last week, and he's all up and running now.
Give him a name check. We like to name check people.
He's Jake K. So he's been chasing us for a while. He's really, really passionate. He's really excited to be on the team.
Great.
He's going to be our new train artist, but he's not obviously trained up just yet on trains. So he hasn't been able to add that part to us, although obviously the 182 has been in testing already that he's joined. So we've made the hard decision to hold back the 182. I'm not happy about putting it out with LZB functionality, but then not the setup in the cab. So the displays on the dashboard. I'm not comfortable about that, even though it works on the HUD and it does work if you use it. So yeah, that will not be coming. That means that you still need to wait, obviously, for the rail driver support on that loco. You still need to wait for the livery designer support on that loco as well. But I'd rather it be where we want it to be than just get it out. I know it's been a long time that we've been talking about this loco, and it still hasn't come out yet. But after all this time, maybe a couple more weeks won't be so bad.
Are you certain about that time frame?
I need to get an artist assigned to it. That's the problem at the moment.
Right.
The work has been sitting there, and I haven't been able to get anyone assigned to actually deal with the artwork.
In that case, please disregard when Adam just said another couple of weeks, because it might be a bit longer than that.
It's definitely fuzzy. Definitely fuzzy.
Yeah, definitely fuzzy. Monda, I think, asked a moment ago, why not release the Rapid Transit and Long Island Railroad fix packs together? And this isn't us avoiding big downloads, although we do like to avoid big downloads. No, it's more a case of if we have the choice to go with both, we will do. But if we want to keep those packages separate for whatever reason, then Rapid Transit will be the one to come first. But they're both in a state of readiness. It's up to the kind of the scheduling and, I guess, dispatch team to decide what the best course of action on that front is. But they're both.
But really excited. They're now ready. They're now ready. Yeah, really, really pleased with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what have you been working on this month? Which routes are you currently focusing on?
Well, gameplay side has still been main Specibahn. I'm still updating the timetable to resolve the heavy trains issue, make sure that's okay. Some people may remember I've spoken in the past about not wishing to change very much about existing timetables because they can be very fragile and tiny changes can have big knock-ons. This was a change that we couldn't avoid because the trains were too heavy and they couldn't get up the hill. Was it just in winter, Matt, or was it generally since the adhesion change this was?
The adhesion change certainly introduced some problems, but winter and rain is certainly where more of the issue is coming, I think.
Yeah, so we've had to go in, and yes, the knock-on has been quite huge in changing that, not only the weight of the train, the length of the train, but then all the coupling operations with the banker locomotives were put out of whack. So yeah, that's taken a lot longer. So that means my efforts are behind the rest of the team who are working on Bakerloo and West Somerset. And in fact, they've also, so this is Martin and Adam working on the setup side and the environment art side. They've completed their work, in fact, on West Somerset and Bakerloo, and they've started to look at our next routes, which will be US routes. We mentioned the last time it's going to be Peninsula Corridor and Oakville Subdivision. They are the next routes. So part of the team is now looking at what has been registered about those routes, what are the concerns, what's the feedback from the community, and what will we aim to be
Well, you
looking
know
at
what?
resolving.
I think in a change to the norm, when we do the next roadmap, let's open up some questions or suggestions rather of things people would like to see addressed on those routes. Now, you've already got the submitted issues
kayak and stuff,
and problems that people have encountered. But actually, I think that to be able to engage with those while we do the stream stuff, I think could be quite good fun. It might be a complete disaster, but it could be quite good fun.
Yeah, funnily enough, when we were talking about coming to a close on rapid transit or Long Island, I'd peruse the forums and see a lot of threads starting to pop up about things still on those routes that we hadn't been aware of. The same, unfortunately, then happened with Bakerloo. We have got a bit more time on Bakerloo because I've unfortunately fallen behind, so I can pick things up. Where some stuff was noted after a large amount of the work had been completed in the period that we were planning to work on the Bakerloo line. So I think we should do a little bit more to encourage, get some feedback to us. I wouldn't necessarily recommend putting it in the chat unless we answer it, but definitely want to get some stuff in the forums. Would it be permitted that people bump threads if they're related to?
I'd just do it once. No one's going to complain about that.
Cool.
Sorry, yeah. I seem to have forgotten how to breathe.
I have tried to mark threads as helpful, but they don't then list it for me. Maybe I need to mark threads as me watching them as well.
Yeah.
Because marking them as helpful, I don't then have a list of threads that I've marked as helpful. But it really does work. Please do keep posting to the forum. Please keep giving that feedback or submit to Kayaku. Even if you think somebody else may have submitted a ticket, please do submit your own ticket. The more information we get, the better. Especially as things as well, we have, since starting the preservation crew, we have seen some trends like potentially PlayStation Pro can have an issue. So PlayStation 4s are fine, but PlayStation 4 Pros seem to actually do suffer an issue that we then can't reproduce on other PlayStations or other platforms. So detail like that is extremely useful as well. I saw one in the roadmap thread just this evening that said, are we fixing the scenario designer because it's really hard to use? If you could let us know what needs fixing.
Oh, you don't even need to. That is covered in extensive depth, and we'll come on to that when we enter the roadmap for rush hour zone. But we'll come on to that then.
Cool.
No, that's pretty straightforward. We've got a little bit more general chat to go through today before we start answering your questions. So if you do have a burning question right now, it's not that we're not answering it, it's that we're in the kind of the summary section before we then move forwards into kind of Q&A stuff. So hang on to your questions. We will get to many of them, I would say.
It's probably also worth saying there are some key areas of routes that we haven't intentionally been working on yet. So, for instance, on rapid transit, we received some feedback about some issues with certain signaling sequences or functionality. In this update, we have not fixed any signaling. We've not touched any of that functionality. Night lighting has been another one that's come up. We deemed that we needed to spend, or we wanted to spend more time specifically on night lighting because there is a trend, it seems, in feedback on that. We haven't touched any night lighting in these updates. And Long Island Railroad.
When it comes to lights at night, it doesn't seem it's particular to any one route. It does seem to be an effect across the board. Matt,
Yes.
Is that something that we can solve across the board, or will it then need rebaking on a route by route basis?
Lighting's complex. There are a number of things that lead to some of the problems with lighting. Some of it is the global lighting in the environment, and that's probably a one fixes changes lots of different places. And some of it is down to how the lighting is deployed in stations, on buildings, and so forth. That's then on a per asset, per route basis.
Right.
So there's a number of areas. So where it's too light at night or where it's too dark at night, overall, that's going to be more of a core issue.
Okay.
Yeah, it is definitely the latter. So it is the use of lit buildings, street lights, how stations are lit at night. So it's something, due to the feedback we've got, it's something we're going to collaborate with or coordinate with the main team to make sure that we're implementing consistent across our products. So yeah, that's something I need to go back to the main team for. And finally, also on on Long Island, sorry, we haven't changed the timetable. There is still some murmurs going on with that, but we haven't touched the timetable. It remains as is for now, because there are signalling changes needed to bring a deeper timetable into that route. So what we've done with rapid transit, that's not something to expect on any preserve route. That was something we were able to bring together, but it's certainly not a guarantee for every route we do.
So yeah, I mean, this is the same issue that is affecting increasing the Bakerloo line services, right? Or it's a similar related issue that you can't add extra services until this is resolved.
Actually, no. Funny enough, I don't think it is. We've learned a lot about the way Long Island Railroad is signalled since we made the route. We thought we knew a lot at the time. We certainly implemented as best to our understanding. But a lot of signalling systems around the world are very different and can be very different just between different railways. So this is actually the way the route is set up to allow trains to fill it. Whereas the Bakerloo line issue is more about the signalman pathing the trains around and getting confused when trains are within, they never leave the world, they just keep bouncing back and forth. So that's the dispatcher one. But Matt is definitely the expert on both of these fields for sure.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want me to...
Good. Okay, good stuff. Right. Okay. So there was one more thing that I wanted to put just mention is that the long-awaited fix for the Full Circle Trophy is also due to arrive just before Hamburg-Lübeck. So for those of you who've been waiting for that,
Trains in World 2020.
That's for Trains in World 2020. It's already fixed in TSW2. But we've gone back and made sure it works in 2020. That is fixed and is expected to release in the normal update that we do before a new route comes out. So there you go. Right now, Matt, I'm going to turn my attention to you because you've got some. We've put some of the just to sort of clarify, we've put all the routes. And their associated locos for the rush hour release. We've added those to the roadmap so you can keep your eye on them, and we've put some of the functionality that we're expecting to have for the core game update. Let's start off with Unreal Engine 4.2.6. What's the point? What do we get? Why are we doing it?
I think one of the main benefits for upgrading to 426, one of the immediate benefits for 426 is next-gen console support. With the version of the Unreal Engine we're on, the game doesn't know if it's running on the next-gen consoles. So with the 426 version, we can do that, and that's one of the key things that means we can start delivering specific content and configuration on the next-gen console platform. I mean, it delivers some other features, but we have to write code, make changes. So we'll be looking at what we can deploy of the other things 426 brings along as time goes on. They're not necessarily part of rush hour. Next-gen really is our main reason for implementing 426. It also keeps us up to date, so we haven't got this big long jump like we had to do previously.
Yeah. Okay, so when we talk about there being a dedicated PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X/S release this time around, it is actually a dedicated release on those platforms.
Yeah, so at the moment you're playing the Xbox One version on your Series X. You're playing the PS4 version on your PS5. What this will be is a version built for the PS5, built for the Series X, built for the Series S, and then that will bring with it custom configurations and so forth that make it run better on that platform.
So the one question that people are going to have, that we're going to let them down gently in just a moment, is what will be the notable differences between the two versions? I guess we should call it previous generation and current generation of consoles. The answer to which is we'll talk more about that as we get closer to release. And we're going. Yeah, I know. I said I'd say it a lot. We will be saying this quite a lot. We want to give you a heads up on some stuff where there's maybe some conception gaps at the moment, but fundamentally, we've got several months to go before Rush Hour comes out, and a lot to talk about in that time, and a lot of time to talk about it. So it will be a few details today, but not much more than you know already with that regard. Now, one of the things, I'm back on you again, Matt. One of the pieces of feedback that we've seen coming out of the Rush Hour announcement is there does seem to be a lot of trains, a lot of locomotives that we've seen before. Now, are we just reusing stuff?
No.
Is any of it reused?
There is definitely reuse. Yes, there is definitely reuse of stuff, and what we would possibly term as part builds rather than full builds. But there's a lot more going on in when you see, for example, the F40PH 3C on the MBTA is an extensive amount of work compared to just copying the 2CAT and reskinning it from Caltrain. It's far from that. So they're not rebuilding it from scratch, but there's it's 8 foot longer for a start. There's a lot of detail differences, and then internally and physics-wise, it's different. It's got all of the cab signaling support, which are all redeveloping for the ACS 64 as well. So there's an awful lot there. But even something like the Talent 2, where you really can't see much difference. It's a 3-car DB Red Talent 2 in VVO branded livery, and we have the VVO license, so it's all in proper livery. It looks really nice. Is not the same as just reskinning the silver one from Rapid Transit or deleting a coach from the 4-car on Colnacken. Basically, they're 3 different cars. Interiors are different, and so forth. So the cab is very similar. There's that's mostly the same, but actually the rest of the train is quite different. So there's bits and pieces that you can take across, and there's a surprising amount that you can't take across. So most of the trains have got quite a lot going on in terms of those detail changes, and some less so. Some the BR143, the BR146.2 I've got less changes. They're getting some improvements to things like adhesion and wheel slip and so forth, and physics that we feel can be done, or PIS systems. All the PIS systems are being updated to the new system across the board, so they'll all have the new dot matrix character-based displays rather than the old texture ones. And wagons are being updated with all the stuff that you would have seen on the IC coaches, the intercity coaches in the BR101 with the various brake levers on them and so forth. They're all being updated for that stuff as well. So there's a ton of changes going on across the board, but I guess the single biggest thing really is the interiors of trains are really one of the single biggest things that make trains different and so expensive to make.
Expensive in time, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, expensive in time and effort to actually make these things. Yes, it takes a surprising amount of time to make a coach. A surprising amount of time. It's not the same level as making a locomotive, but unlike in older sim in TS1, it's the difference between a loco and a coach was very, very different. It's relatively lightweight to make a coach. These days, they're much closer to the loco level because of all the interactivity, all of the fact you can walk around it inside is just you've got to put the detail in and support that.
So, this comes out of a conversation we were having earlier on today, because we will look at feedback that we get ahead of doing a Q&A session to kind of get to what are the big questions that are being asked, and the one about where's the new stuff, where are the new trains, and you kind of go, well, actually, there's a lot of work gone into the trains that have been put out here, but the point is, we've done a Talent 2 twice already, so this is a third Talent 2 that we've done now, and while that's a fresh amount of work for each Talent 2 that has been released, for you as a player, it is not necessarily a fresh experience. It might be a very minor tweak on an experience you've already had, but Talent 2, if you are not an aficionado, then the differences are going to be negligible at best, and that's not something that we'd considered. In Hold Your Hands Up, oh yeah, that's worth thinking about. So even when a ton of development time has gone into doing a completely different layout or a rebranded layout on the interior of a train, if you're not seeing something that is fresh and interesting to you, and here's the other thing that I've got a hunch about, is that I think that unless it is something like the ICE where the interiors are spectacular, all people care about when they run through the interior of a train or give it a look over or something like that is that it feels authentic, is that it feels like the thing that they're used to. They then head into the cab, drive the train, never look at the interior again. So we spend a lot of time on something that people only appreciate maybe once or twice, or a handful of times. And it's a really interesting problem to tackle, because on the one hand, we don't want to stop doing realistic interiors. That would be bad. But on the other hand, it does chew through a lot of development time that maybe isn't appreciated as much as something else.
I'll tell you what I've noticed a lot more of in Trains in World is how many trains are 2-2 seating and how many are 2-3 seating. Because when you run through the train, you hit those goddamn 2-3 seats.
Well, that's
you
real.
have to keep going left and right.
That's real. Whoever it was came up with 2-3 seating should be, smashed over their head with a 3-seat, or be forced to sit in one for all eternity with someone who is over the height of 5'5" sat opposite them, rubbing kneecaps against one another. Just saying. Right. Anyway, so that's a conversation that we've had internally, and it basically it was almost a light bulb moment of, just because we've put a ton of effort into it doesn't mean that it feels fresh and new and interesting to you when you've already got another version of the same train. When we're talking about the Electro Stars that are running London to Brighton, are they reused? Are they rebuilt? What's their...
So the 377/4 is the one that you're already familiar with. The PIS is being upgraded. I think there'll be some other minor fixes, but fundamentally it's the same one that you had in East Coastway. It's the same train that runs there. It is the train that runs predominantly on that line. So if you model London Brighton, that route is there, loads of that train is there, loads of them. There will be some 377/1s. Some of the 4/4s were renumbered, so there'll be some of those represented as well. But that's the same model; it's just a different number. The 387, however, if you actually look at the photograph of two 387s side by side, you'll realise that while they have a superficially the same basic shell, they differ in so many other ways. So it's a very different design overall. It's got round windows on the side instead of square. The seating inside is massively different. Obviously, it's an airport train. There's minor changes actually to the cab as well. The PIS is different. All of the underframe, everything below the doors, is entirely different.
Right.
And talking to the physics guys, talking to the physics guys, it requires a complete retune of the physics. It is a different train, just in the same body as one you're familiar with.
I think it was the last development of the Electro Stars, wasn't it? Because the Gatwick ones are the 387/2s.
Yeah, I believe they're the same basic model the Great Western use as well.
Mm.
And some of the newer 377s are based, I think the /6s or something like that are based on the same
6
design.
and 7. Yeah, because they got curvier windows and things as well.
So, in summary, there's no such thing as a simple reskin.
It's actually a phrase we have internally. It is literally a swear jar phrase. There's no such thing as a reskin.
Because there's always extra work involved as well. But the point is that sometimes that's not appreciated. And I don't mean in the sense of, oh, you're all so ungrateful. It's more that it's not noticed. And therefore, is that effort actually the best use of effort that we have? And at the moment, it's how we're going to proceed. We will try and use wherever possible the rolling stock, the trains that run on the route that we're running, even if you've had it before. But the light bulb's gone off. We are aware that, if it's not a fresh experience and it's a redo of one we've done before, maybe we're missing a trick. So that's been noted, but there we go. I don't doubt. As Hentis says, it's been noticed on my end. I noticed. I've got attention to detail. we get that there's a variable scale about how much people notice stuff, but at the end of the day, we want a new experience. When we release something new, we want it to feel like it's new. Otherwise, we're missing a trick, basically. And chances are we'd sell a few more if it did feel like it was new. And there's no one's going to complain about that at our side of things. Now, on this subject, let's talk NEC and let's talk Boston Providence, because I've seen a few people kind of go, "Oh, they've just redone NEC from Train Sim World 2020." Well, that's not true, is it?
No, we're in a different part of the states. We're at the other end. The bit it was in 2020 was the middle around New York, whereas we're at the other north end of it in Boston now, so in a different state entirely. It's the fastest stretch of the NEC, and really interesting actually going to Boston. Plus the fascinating operations where the ACS 64s reverse and back round a big loop to change it. They don't change locos or anything like that. They reverse the whole train at Boston, which is really interesting.
Right.
Totally. Didn't believe that when I found that out. That seemed really unlikely, but it's that will be captured in the timetable.
Okay, all right. This was your opportunity to go what's cool and interesting. We're trying to give fair dues to each one of the three routes. So what's cool and interesting?
Well, you've got the ACS 64, which is obviously a favourite on the Amtrak lines. They're the staple that run everything, and it's great to get that back in the game. And it will be getting all some major upgrades to physics. Essentially, we're going to bring the 3D model across, and then gut everything else essentially and replace it. So it's gonna be it should be a nice fresh experience. All the ATC access cab signaling is getting redone. All the on trackside cab signaling is being redone as well, because it wasn't quite as good as it should be in the previous incarnation, and we've learned a lot. So we'll be doing that this time. And then for MBTA, which is a brand new operator for us, the Boston Transit, that'll be the F40PH-3C, which is then one of the newer trains, or reworked trains, and that'll be hauling the single deck coaches. And I've seen a number of people asking, will it have a cab car? Yes, it will have a cab car. You need the cab car in this instance once you get to Boston, it's then cab car the other way. So that's included and should be fun and different. Those coaches don't exist in the game at all, and neither does the cab car. They're quite unique to that area. And lastly, the route. So the route is from Boston down to Providence as the southern end, but it also does include the Stoughton branch as well.
Does include the Stoughton branch. Okay, good. That was a question that came up. I was going to ask you. That's good. So, as with all routes, we will be detailing these much more in the run-up to release. But we just wanted to attack a few of the bigger questions that we've seen so far. On which note, Riesa to Dresden. What was the question I was going to ask? Yeah, this has got the fewest kind of brand new in terms of vehicles involved. What was the reasoning behind that, I guess?
So we really, really liked Riesa Dresden. It's gone down really well on Train Sim when it came out, and it fit really nicely with what we wanted to do here. And these are the trains that run here. Once you get beyond these core trains that run the various S-Bahn, Regional Express and Regional Bahn, you're then into things like ICET, which would be awesome to make. But once you've made an ICET, there's no room in the pack for anything else. And that wouldn't make up a fun pack at all. So the reason was to have a diverse range of stock. And this has got the most variety of stock we've ever put in a single route. So that you had the variety of trains running out to the airport, running out to Meissen on the two different S-Bahn lines. It's got the fast and the main and the diverging line on the main line. And then it also runs up to Grosenhain as another terminating point. So you've got multiple terminating points on this route. It feels a little bit networky. And the reason was to have this variety of stock, because the 143 runs to the airport, the 146 runs to Meissen, the Talent 2s run the Dresden Riesa, so there's you need that variety of stock to be able to deliver that kind of breadth and depth of experience.
Okay. So in terms of layers, because presumably this is a layering opportunity, that we've got going on there as well. Particularly when you reference an ICE, particularly, even if you're using the wrong one, you could possibly layer on an ICE. What's the plan in that regard, or is that still to be decided?
To be decided at the moment. There's a lot of options that we can consider for it, but we need to take on board some of the feedback we've had lately about layering and how that's been used, and work out what the right plan is for everybody on that front. So lots of options open to us. The gameplay designers are designing the Dresden timetable right now.
So for those of you who don't watch the roadmap stream regularly, when we talk about layers, because otherwise we drift into terminology that not everybody understands. When we talk about layers, it basically means if you own an add-on, let's say Rhine-Ruhr-Osten, for example, that will come with a bunch of different trains, a bunch of different rolling stock that also run on another route that we then later release. And what we do sometimes is we will add that extra rolling stock as an additional batch of services, a layer of services that will sit over the top of that which comes with the new route. Now, this can be problematic when you start bumping into memory use issues, particularly with the volume of different vehicles that are running there. We use the term vehicles as a generic for trains, EMUs, DMUs, rolling stock, wagons, passenger cars, all of that business. Vehicles, we use it as a kind of a catch-all. But when you start to get a big variety and a large volume of them, it can cause memory use issues, I should say, on some platforms, notably the last generation consoles. And we have got work ongoing, which is listed on the roadmap under memory use optimization, to try and address that. I saw a question earlier on about how's that progressing. It's constant, it's ongoing. Everything we do is kind of driven towards addressing these kind of core issues that we need to resolve in order to keep evolving the game as it moves forwards. So there's nothing really concrete to say there, but the layers question with regard to Riesa Dresden, I should say, will be answered before it comes out, so you'll be able to decide for yourself if you want extra stuff or not. There's that. Now, talking about layers and the associated big dog in the room, which is route extensions. London to Brighton and East Coastway. Are they married?
No. No, there's no linkage between the two routes.
Okay.
Obviously, the Brighton tile is in the same physical location, and London Brighton will be built based off of that tile. So in theory, enterprising PC users will probably copy files, but that's not unofficially.
You've drifted into science there. What does that mean?
Drifted into science. Well, some of the community have been able to find ways of merging routes themselves by hacking, essentially, and it's great fun, but it's not recommended.
Is it Hagen, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's the Rhine-Ruhr-Osten and the Ruhr-Sieg-Nord routes at Hagen. So this route does not come joined. You wouldn't be able to run a continuous service from London Brighton down the East Coastway because those services generally run via another line down to Lewis. So it's but what we will do is we'll put the AI traffic in as if they were on that route. So Brighton will still benefit from the AI traffic running up and down across London Road Viaduct. So it will still get that traffic. You won't be able to drive that. If you want to drive that, you just need to switch routes.
So there's why right? When we've got numerous German routes that could quite easily link together because they share stations in some cases, and what is holding us back from taking two routes that we've done that do link together in reality? What's the technical hold up? Why are we not linking these together? What do we need to solve to make that happen?
So we need to. There's a number of challenges on a number of fronts. It's about technically, I could take two routes and I can merge them and rework a bit of signaling over the joins so that all works okay. And then I have to write a brand new timetable that encompasses all the services across both routes. So once you've done all of that and you've then got that, how do you get that to people? Because in theory, it should go to people who own both routes. And there's not always a good mechanism to be able to give that to distribute some. So then you'd be looking at delivering it potentially as another product, and then people are buying what they've already got. It gets so there's a number of technical and delivery challenges in terms of we'd really like to do this, but actually what we really need it to do, the ideal solution is all this stuff happens on the client side, on the game side, so that you buy box 1 is this route and box 2 is this route, and then the game says, oh, snap, and they join together.
And it's got the handshake built in.
And it does all of that stuff. And when we author the timetables, they're actually authored with the full route in mind. So that if this route is not there, it just says, oh, that goes off that portal. And then it comes back on that portal and then does the bit that you've got. Then you can own a route A or route B, and it will work independently or snap them together, and then you get route. That's where we really, really want to get to. That's really complicated. For various reasons, not only the fact that it's got Unreal has this thing called a persistent level, and you're only supposed to have one, and that would mean you'd have two, which Unreal doesn't like.
The preservation crew get asked the same as well for routes such as obviously the Hamburg situation,
right?
Not the Hamburg, sorry, the Hagen situation, and it drifts into the aspiration land, but we have been thinking about this from the start, which is why the likes of Hagen is in the same geographical location. It's why Brighton is in the same geographical location. So yeah.
Okay, so look, there's that's the technical answer. In terms of a practical answer, this is not something that we're actively pursuing at the moment. It's a big job, right?
No, it's not something we're looking at right now at all.
Very big.
Right. So it's a big job, and it's not one of the big jobs that we are currently looking at. We'll keep you informed. We know it's something that people would like, and we have built stuff with this kind of thinking in mind, but we are not set up to do that yet. So as it's not on the roadmap, it's not currently in development. There you go. You can tick that one off your bingo card. But let's talk about a big project that actually is in development, and that is passenger revamp / overhaul / upgrade / whatever. What is it?
So it's about adding more diversity to the passengers, so that you're not seeing the Clone Wars on the platform. So there's a combination of efforts there for making clothes in different colours, lots of different colours, adding new types of clothing, adding new types of hairs and heads, and so forth. So that we'll see you're less likely to see exactly the same person, which there's some 20 different people, I think, is what it works out at. And so this will make that significantly more diverse. So you'll see much more variation there. The other element of it is more of an impression of when things get busier at rush hour and quieter during the non-rush hour times. And that's going to be down to where the passengers are. Sometimes passengers in the game currently spawn at places you are not. So if you're at Brighton Station, for example, 30 or 40% of your passenger budget, your people, are currently standing on London Road Station, where you can't see them. So rather than being on Brighton, where they'd actually help make the station look busier, there's also down to the behaviours on stations, and trying to fill a huge station is not practical. You need thousands and thousands of people. But then in reality, terminal stations, certainly, they don't generally let you onto the platform until the train's ready for departure. So there's all sorts of bits of tracing paper laid over top of each other, and to draw one character is like 5 or 6 of those instead of it should just be like 2 or 3 at the most.
Hold on just a moment. You see, I've got no problems at my end, but we are getting all of the YouTube people saying that the stream is rip. I've got no problems here at all. It's all streaming normally. I'm not dropping any frames. We'll give them a minute to resync, and go check. Go. Adam's left. Oh no, Adam's crashed. No, it's a disaster.
My wing crashed.
If
R2D2 fell out, I had to put him back.
thank you, folks. If you're having trouble watching on YouTube, we are also on Twitch, and all of the Twitch users were quite merrily gloating about the fact that it was working fine for them. This will be our friend and yours restream, having a restream senior moment, and just having a bit of a wobble. So it looks like Twitch is working just fine. If YouTube's still working fine, then that's good. Let's pick it up again, talking about passengers, and you were talking about the efficiency possible in an individual passenger, because right now they're quite expensive.
Yeah, it's just the processor and GPU cost in terms of moving them, in terms of handling the collisions so that they bounce off each other, how they walk around each other. That's all. As it turns out, they've done a lot of benchmark. The team's done a lot of benchmarking there, and it turns out that's actually quite costly on the GPU and the CPU. So they are working on improving that stuff so that we can improve the volume of passengers that are on the platforms. We're improving what they do on the platforms so that they're in the right places, not in a station 2 miles away, and we're also looking at other things we can do to improve how the passengers are where you need them to be, so that you can see them, rather than them just not being somewhere you could see them, which is quite often at the moment. So there's a lot of work going on in terms of that. So this is it's a fairly big overhaul on the passenger system, really.
So is this the first look that we've really given the passenger system since our first passenger route, or
It's Great Western? Yeah, really. This is. I mean, there's been some minor tweaks and improvements. Northeast Corridor, we did a few tweaks and improvements to it, but really since then, this is Northeast Corridor's improvements were nothing like what's going on at the moment. This is quite substantial. The work that's going on, and involves quite a few people actually. So yeah, it should be good.
So I mean, when we talk about diversity in passengers, we're not quite to the stage yet where we're talking people reading cell phones, or looking at a newspaper, or carrying luggage, or pushing a pushchair, or any of those other incidences of normal passenger behaviour. This is mostly about the appearance of those passengers will be far more varied than we're getting at the moment. Instead of 5 different heads plonked on top of another 5 different outfits, we're going much further than that. Have you got any idea of kind of the scale or the range of different passenger designs, I guess, that we'd encounter?
So the art team haven't yet finalised the additional art that's going to be done for different outfits, heads and hairs. So there'll be some more of those, definitely. The hair at the moment needs some work. The materials for that one is showing the hair looks really weird at the minute. So they're definitely going to be improving the way that hair looks. But where you get a lot of the variation, which multiplies up the numbers quite rapidly, is that where someone might have a tracksuit on that's grey, the next person's tracksuit might be red. The next person's tracksuit is blue. So we can, the technical term is palletization. Effectively, we can mark areas on the clothes and just give them a selection of clothing, or colours, sorry, and then that clothing, instead of like it would be at the moment where they'll always be the colour they were designed by the artist to be, they can now be any one of this range of colours. And by the time you take into account tops, bottoms, and it's quite clever in terms of how it can apply them. So suits might be like grey and like beige, for example, whereas their ties could benefit from wacky colours. And we can also then, in addition to the colour variants, we've also got a layer where we apply pattern variants. So your hoodies can have stripes, circles, and dots, and all sorts of things on them as well. So by the time you take into account the new art assets that will change the basic shape, the colours, and the styles of them all, it actually, in any given scene, it becomes quite difficult to see exactly the same character more than once, which is quite nice.
So the work that we're doing here, does this lead towards passengers with luggage? Does it lead towards having children? Does it lead towards overweight passengers, or incredibly tall passengers? When we look at humanity, Matt, that's where you find at stations is humanity. It's rich tapestry of all shapes, sizes, colours, and creeds, all blending together to ride on a miserable commuter train. Are we getting closer to that, and is this a step in that direction?
It's a step in that direction, but only a small step at that level. We are looking at what we can do to bring in the visuals of it's like luggage, for example, but you won't see passengers carrying luggage around. We want to try and introduce it to the world, particularly like at Gatwick or at Dresden and Dresden Flughafen, where you've clearly got passengers that are going to be going on an aircraft. They're going to have baggage, so we want to try and introduce that in an appropriate way, because for example, it can't be scenery. It can't just be there all the time. That would be silly. So we're looking at what we can do to bring in an additional passenger variety that's not necessarily the passengers that are walking up and down. We're not quite at a place yet where we can actually make the passengers pick stuff up.
You're going to need to spell this out, because the way that I just heard that, Matt just promised luggage. So what do you mean? Speak to me of passenger tableaus.
So this is where we're looking to have little dioramas, essentially, of passengers that won't move. They'll animate. They'll idle. They'll be sitting there. These people might be looking at a newspaper. They might be looking at their phone, or jogging away to a bit of music or something, and they'll be on the platform. But they won't get on or train, or they won't become people who've got off your train. But by unhooking it from the actual movement passenger system, the live passenger system, we can be a lot more creative with that. Chap mentioned wheelchairs. It's one of the topics we've been discussing. I don't know whether we'll get there, but we've got the ability. But at that point, it becomes just art. I've used the word just. I should never use the word just. It is art at that point, and our team
There's
are
no
really
artists
good at
here.
art.
They're not. They can't work the internet.
They tend to watch and then tell me afterwards what I said wrong. But it becomes a nice art problem where the artists can really create some interesting characters, and then what we can do is those character dioramas can then receive palletization and so forth as well, so that even if it's the same scene in 2 or 3 different places, they've got different colors and patterns, so it doesn't look as obvious it's the same scene. So no, we're just at the point of trying to design what that sort of thing will look like and how that will go on. But that's one of the next elements. And the idea is that they will appear or not, depending on when you arrive at the station. They will have appeared, and there might be different ones that will appear in different places. So you still get that sense of this is not the same station I visited before, and Bob is still waiting for his train 20 hours later. You won't get that if you drive up and down the route. It'll change every time you get there. So it should be really interesting, and it will add quite a lot to the appearance of the busyness of the station.
Someone said if we can.
If I may,
go on, Adam.
If I may jump in. Hey, one question that obviously the Preserve crew and those watching the Preserve crew and the road stream roadmap will be interested in: how much of this tech will my team need to implement on a route, and how much will be part of the core system?
So I'm going to, at this point, not guarantee anything, because I learned from Sam. Some bits of it may be in core, but at this point, I'm not going to make you any promises. Assume you need to make everything, and once we've actually got the final stuff across, then we can go through the stuff. So character dioramas, for example, you will definitely need to place on the platforms. They don't exist. Variances, maybe. I don't know. We'll have to work out how that fits on there. And then if we're going to introduce lots of character variation, we need to sort of check the memory and make sure that we've not suddenly blown the memory usage out for a route that was running fine to no longer be running fine. So assume nothing. Assume that Adam's team will be going through each route, polishing and tidying. But when we went a bit further down the track towards the release, then Adam and I can come back with this is looking like these things will be upgraded if anything like that turns out to be true.
And
yeah, I mean, the reason I ask is I've seen a number of people say, does all this lead to tech that we can backport? And that's absolutely true. I look at all the things. I'm part of the team. I mean, the daily calls that the main team have as well. My team are fully trained in everything the main team are doing. So our desire is that we can bring the Preserve collection up as far as possible. Yeah. So yeah, we're part of this development just as much so.
Yeah, we're absolutely looking to see, make sure we can deliver tech that Adam's team can bring in for other routes as well.
And then it becomes a case. You people shut up. I'm going to have my word. It then becomes a case of the tools that are developed to then deploy these. Well, create and deploy these dioramas in various places that fall outside normal passenger traffic routes within a station environment, so that it's as efficient to do as possible. If Adam's going a little bit low res, incidentally, that's just his face. Don't worry about it. Morgan has asked the same question 47 times, so I'm going to answer it because I was going to answer it anyway. Have we looked into contracting this out to someone who has already solved this problem? There are numerous companies that have done, large-scale crowds and that kind of thing. Have we thought about talking to them to get them to solve the problem for us?
But we're always looking, and we do contract various jobs. This isn't because though generally they haven't got train simulation running in the background, so they can spend lots of the system we use, the nav mesh system in Unreal, can do a lot more, but it drains your CPU and your GPU a lot more, as we're finding. So it's the team have a good handle on what they're doing. So it's just a question of actually they've got the time now, getting down and doing it, and also making sure it's sympathetic to everything else, like the trains, which are quite important, and making sure that that experience is protected.
Okay, I've got 2 more roadmap rush hours. You can pick and choose in either order, Matt. Actually, I've got 3 more. The first of which is track IR. The second of which is what's rush hour then, and the third of which is can I turn rush hour off? What do you want to do first?
Well, track IR is nice and easy. Let's do
the
IR
easy
first.
one. Yeah, he's taking the easy one first. That's
so track IR is a thing. It's in our internal builds now, and it's great. If you don't know what track IR is, it's a head tracking system, and it's like a little webcam that sits on top of your monitor, and then either you put a little metal bracket onto a baseball cap, or you've got this thing that can clip onto your headphones and give you 3 lights. And then what it does is it looks at those 3 LEDs that are infrared and works out what your head is doing. So as you move around, so the screen moves around. It's really good. Takes a little bit to get used to at first, but it improves the immersion in the cab tenfold, because you can just look down at things. And the screen will move. And if you're immediately thinking, but surely once you've looked down, you can't see the monitor anymore, what use is that? It's a scaled thing. So you move a little bit and the screen moves along. Like I said, it takes a bit of getting used to, but it's very, very good. Yes, the track clip is the thing.
Thelonious says, I don't want DTG tracking my head. It's a massive privacy issues. Yeah, you really don't want us to know whether your head is currently pointing left or right. That would, I mean, think of the damage we could do to your credit rating. Okay, that's that one. In fact, I'm going to throw in a different one now that I know you've got the answer to. You don't need to go into massive depth so that we can get through a few more questions. Immersion Controls, what are we changing now?
So we looked at the feedback and our own experiences with it, to be honest, but we looked at the feedback and the people using the revised control system, and people wanting more functionality out of it, things that they were missing from the classic controls, and just additional stuff that's never been on the controller at all, like controlling the cruise control, for example. And so we've put all that on the controller.
This one's pertinent. Have we had open source interfaces for track IR is coming as part of it? So can people reconfigure it themselves? Does this extend more towards being a hardware support API of some description?
It's got no relationship with the hardware support APIs. It uses the natural point trackir64.dll, I think it is, which a lot of the external systems like FaceTrack No IR and Visual Tracker and so forth all use. I've not personally tried Visual Tracker. I need to do that just to make sure that works okay. But we've done it in a fairly similar way to the way it was done in the original train simulator, which supports all of these other systems as well. So I'm not envisaging any problem, but at this point, only TrackIR has actually been tested against it.
Okay, and next, when we talk about rush hour, in terms of conceptually, what is rush hour? What are you trying to accomplish with it?
So with rush hour, we want to give you busy routes in terms of trains. Hence why these are all busy commuter routes. There's lots of passengers on the platforms. There's that sense of not rushing. It's that sense, because obviously it's the passengers that are rushing in the case of rush hour, but that sense of pressure as a driver. You've got more going on. There's probably more trains, or there will be more trains going on at rush hour than there will be at, say, noon or at midnight, for example. So the chances that you're going to get adverse signals in your way and things ballooning out of control if you're late, it can start causing other problems, because the dispatcher is dynamic. I know some people have been experimenting with that in some of the forums I've seen, that if you start getting late, it will start putting other trains in front of you, and in a much more condensed environment like some of these routes, that can actually mean that you start getting pushed a slot behind, which means you're just never going to get caught up again. So it's the experience of the passengers on the platform, and I think it's kind of those two elements, the trains and the passengers, really.
So is this something that is this core tech that immediately changes everything on every route we've released for TSW2, or is this more work that you're queuing up for Adam to do in the future, or is this literally bespoke to the routes that we're releasing?
So the passenger work, as we've discussed, we can review what goes on where. I would hope that we would start the same as we've been rolling. Adam's team has been rolling out the PIS system across routes. They'd start looking at rolling out the passenger improvements so that every route starts feeling busier than it currently is. From a train perspective, potentially, it won't automatically happen at all, because it's down to the volume of services, which might mean increasing the density of the timetable. So what Adam's just done with the rapid transit timetable actually increases the density of traffic and the volume of traffic on there. So that's actually going to feel a little bit more, towards what you normally call rush hour, later on other timetables may get looked at, but probably this is more going to be a focus going forwards. But as I say, as Adam's team's looking at things on the older routes, there's every opportunity there's extra gaps here for more services. Let's potentially look at that.
So does this mean that as part of the underlying kind of core tech, that we're increasing our effectiveness, our efficiency in terms of the dispatcher and our ability to run more services? Or is this down to the routes that we've selected naturally handle a higher volume of services?
A combination of the two. So there have been some improvements to the dispatcher. Not the ones we need for Bakerloo, unfortunately, not yet. Those are still in planning. But so like London Brighton runs an awful lot of trains over the 50 miles or so that it is of the route length, so you'll get that density of trains naturally. So some of it is down to just the natural choice of the routes, but because of some of the changes that have been made to dispatcher, it's been easier for the team to actually leverage that. But more rush hour is more actually signifying for the team who are building this is a priority. Make sure that it has that train density in there. It is crucial,
right.
It's a mind shift, really.
So if I'm using the scenario planner on one of the let's say rush hour enabled routes, will I have the capability to run more than I might be able to on other routes? So are there more paths and more start and stop locations?
Haven't looked at that yet. So potentially, yes. That's not.
No, you can't say potentially then yes, and you haven't looked at it yet. In the space of 3 seconds, pick one.
No.
Thank you. No, that's I haven't looked at it yet. We'd love to. That's all good. You haven't looked at it yet. Come on, Matt. You used to be good at this. Well, you were briefly. Okay, no, that's fine. That on the subject of the scenario planner and its partner in crime, delivery designer, we're going to be talking about those in slightly more depth as we get closer to the launch of Rush Hour. There are a number of other features that are under consideration, under development, that we're not 100% certain are going to make the kind of core update yet. So we're kind of dancing around a little bit exactly what we're working on, because at some point, and this is inevitable with any major release, is you kind of go, right, there are 52 things on the list, we can do 32 of them. pick your top 32. And those are totally arbitrary numbers on my part. But we're still whittling down what the actual feature set will be. And given that we're several months out still, we've got some way to go yet to kind of identify that finalized list. But the things that we routinely talk about as being high up on our wish list, those are the kinds of things that that are more likely to be looked at first, unless they are super huge projects. So we've spoken about dynamic weather conditions in the past. We've spoken about improvements to skies and lighting, all of that kind of stuff. We're not talking about it, no. But it is the kind of thing that is on our list of considerations for later. I've got Matt sending me a secret message to the side. A few people are asking about the cost of upgrade for Series X. What does that mean? That's not a full question. Okay, so in terms of how much does it cost, if you go and check, someone will be kind enough to post this into the chat, I'm sure. But if you go and look at the FAQs for Rush Hour, it will give you the update cost to pick up Rush Hour when it comes out. Rush Hour it's a beefy DLC pack, effectively. You will need Train Sim World 2 to play it. Maybe it's the cost of upgrade Train Sim World 2 to play on the next gen.
I think that's what I meant.
I don't know the answer to that. Mike, have you got your ears on? I know Mike's got his ears on. Mike, is there something clever we're doing with that, or shall I file this one under hold on, we'll discuss it and tell people about it later? I'll wait for your answer. However, the one thing to bear in mind, if you are planning to migrate from a previous generation console to a new one, what you own already will come with you, providing you're using the same account. So if you're using your same PSN account, or if you're using your same Xbox Live account as you move forwards, everything you own now comes with, apart from your save game. Warning, warning, apart from your save game. Now, we had this conversation earlier, and Matt said, oh, it's easy. You just go and copy it, and you're going to go like, you're going to explain to my 80-year-old grandfather how to put a USB stick into his PlayStation that I hooked him up just so he could play with some trains, and then explain how to navigate through the system menu, how to copy a save game from some ambiguously named folder into his memory stick, and then put it in the right place in the new one. You should be able to copy your save across. It will not be the easiest of processes, but we will offer up some kind of walkthrough guide, or if someone from the community does a particularly good one, we'll feature that. But be prepared if you are planning to switch to a next-gen console instead of the previous gen, you will lose your save game unless you can figure out how to copy it across. We'll have more information as we get closer to the date, and I'm sure of nothing. There you go. I was about to promise something there, but no, I'm not. I'm not sure of anything in the slightest there. Right, we've got let's say 15 minutes. Let's go for some random questions. Adam, I've given you some time off. What would you like to talk about first?
I have a good half dozen questions or so that I've been watching the chat as well, that is related to the roadmap. Obviously, Matt's the central go-to person for Rush Hour. So, yeah, I've got a few roadmap questions, if I may. So, has the camera clipping issue on rapid transit on the tunnels been fixed? To my knowledge, yes. The camera has been protected from being lost into the ethos. One from an Adrian. Will the rapid transit trains get passenger information systems on the carriages? No. So far, the train departure, or the platform, the train station stop systems, we're still watching the main team and the tech they're developing there. So we haven't been doing any information systems on trains yet. Matt Jam YT says, are we updating the immersion controls for Long Island Railroad and Rapid Transit. Yes, through various feedback on these streams, we've noticed that a lot of people are really enjoying the immersion controls. So we've been starting to make the older DLC much more compatible, and it won't force you into the classic controls we go through. So that's pretty cool.
Point of order.
Yep.
So when the Rush Hour core updates improves on immersion controls again, will that automatically translate across to every route? Don't tell me we've got to implement immersion control compatibility on every route. That would be a bad answer.
So my understanding is that what we did with the preserve collection, was that we locked some content to classic controls because they referenced controls that weren't available on the new mapping, the immersion mapping.
Okay.
Now that I'm releasing content from being locked into classic, what we go for is you can use either controls, and it will still be fine. You won't get odd messages telling you to press a button that won't do what it says it's going to do. So I'm making the preserved content a lot more compatible to newer setups.
So I mean, these will presumably be the older routes that lacked the foresight of we might muck about with the controls in the future.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
okay. Thank you, Adam.
One from a sim model trains. What are the BR182 formation sizes? Because it mentions on the roadmap, on the article, that we're increasing the number of consists. So the BR182 for Rapid Transit will now come in 3, 4, and 5 car formations, rather than just the formation that was used in the timetable. And a lot of questions about will we see trains emptying at the ends of services or going to depots? I'm working with the main team on this. We do have the latest fix, so we're looking to try and start rolling that out as well. We're still testing that it does work, and it does work under a number of different arrangements and setups and timetables. So we're still working on that one at the moment. And then finally, on my list that I've noted here from a Lunar Twisted, will we be able to drive the ice train on Rapid Transit timetable? Because I mentioned that at Bitterfeld, there are some ice trains that pass through that station. So they are noted on the timetable as well, but no, you will not be able to drive them. They will just be AI running through the Bitterfeld station on Rapid Transit.
Okay,
so, yeah,
I'm going to pass over to Matt in a moment. Matt, start cherry picking. But with the East Coast Way Massive are in the house, and they're saying, is there any word on when are we going to release the PIS on East Coast Way? It's done. For crying out loud, it was done 3 months ago. What are we playing at? Shall I lean on Matt? Not you, Matt. No, you, Matt. Shall I lean on Matt and get that one escalated?
To my knowledge, it's going with the 313 release. So
of course it is. Yeah, we actually mentioned that the other week. So that'll be alongside the 313. Probably.
Yep, and there's a tiny little bonus. It's very, very tiny. At Southeast, there is a bridge over the railway line at that station, Southeast, and at the moment you can't see off of it. So you can't see these awesome trains, the freight trains and the passenger trains running down to Seaford. This update fixes that. So you can now see off that footbridge at Southeast. We thought that was a cute little thing we were playing with. So, yeah, that's a little extra bonus.
Okay, fine. Matt, you're up.
Oh, in that time I've only got a couple. Will Electra Stars have new sounds? The 387, we're looking at new audio because they have got slightly different sounds to the 377. Freight on London Brighton. We're still looking at the London Brighton timetable and what we'll put on there. The absolute priority, though, is to get the density of passenger services. The London Brighton timetable will be, I think, by far the busiest timetable we've ever made in the game. So before I go promising, sorry.
Steady. Easy there with the big talk.
Challenge accepted.
The thing to bear in mind, when we're talking about the stuff that's coming with Rush Hour, we will be talking from time to time in an aspirational sense because this is several months out from release. So finalized feature sets are still not finalized. This is the reason that we are cherry picking questions a little bit about what's coming with Rush Hour. We've got a lot of time to talk about the features that are coming, and you've got plenty of time to decide whether this is a a pack of routes that you should or shouldn't get excited about based on your own personal taste. We're not gonna hide any information from you. It's just that at the moment, some of it is still not 100% locked. So we do have to do a little bit of easy there, just hold fire there for a moment. Matt, you had more.
Yes, and another question I saw on there was there's some problems with the sounds on the ACS 64. So all of the trains are getting a once over from the audio team. So that'll be looked into as well. That I think should be a relatively straightforward problem for them to fix. Another question. Now everything's flying up the screen so fast I can't read it. So
that's okay. Is there anything else you think we should cover that we haven't done in terms of rush hour and maybe where you've seen a disconnect between what people are assuming and what is more realistic to suggest is coming?
No, we've covered what's the extents of the 3 routes and what's going to be included there. Someone asked if Hove was included. It isn't. The trains that are on the routes, we've covered what's in there, and we've and what's in there, and we've touched on what we can reasonably at the moment about the features. So someone's saying, is it a 3-car, 5-car Talent to on Dresden Riese? No, it's just a 3-car. So that's, I think that answers the questions.
That ties back to what we were saying earlier on, is that you might kind of go like, well, you've already got, multiple Talent 2s, just, kit bash them, just, slap them together, it'll all be great. But that effectively means that instead of making 3 cars, you're making 8.
Yeah, we literally had the 5-car Talent 2 on the plan to do, because it makes perfect sense to have the 5-car Talent 2 on. It runs RE50, I think, and then when we were looking at the detail and what was actually involved in delivering that 5-car Talent 2, it's like that's insane. So focus on the 3-car Talent 2 and put the effort where it'll be appreciated more, I think.
Any more news to get back onto the roadmap topic? Any more news on Penzance or Cathcart Circle? Actually, did I only mention this in the warm up today, Adam, or did we actually say it out loud? Several people have noticed that actually Cathcart Circle has rocketed through the process. I don't think we did actually say this out loud, did we? So Cathcart Circle has gone through the process at the speed that we want things to go through the process. Historically, we have added things to the roadmap earlier than we would in future. We want to add things to give you a reasonable, not unreasonable length of time to wait between their initial appearance and their eventual release. And we now have a kind of semi-flexible time frame where we will add new stuff to the roadmap. Cathcart was the first thing added to the roadmap under this new system, for want of a better word. So when we add stuff, it will be far closer to being released than things that you've seen in the past. So that's partly why it looks like it's rocked through the roadmap at a heck of a pace. The second reason is that the in-planning phase that it would have sat in for a month or more beforehand, we kind of skipped that stage and went straight to where it had started being in production, and that's because there were some decisions still to be made behind the scenes. So it was like the planning to production happened very quickly because all of the research and kind of route paraphernalia that we do as part of the planning stage, we'd kind of already established that by the time we'd added it to the roadmap. So that's why it looks like it's moved through quickly, is because it's working under this kind of new regime, I guess. What was the other one? I had another one, but it was almost as good, but it wasn't as good. No.
I have a question for Matt, if I may.
Go on, Em. Go on. No, you can ask Matt a question.
As part of the passenger upgrades for Rush Hour and the palletization, did you ask, and was it agreed that they would add pink to the clothing lineup?
I don't know how I've missed that, but that is not getting missed tomorrow's meeting.
Oh dear.
I want to get some pink headphones.
Salmon suits and salmon t-shirts are a thing.
We should not be abusing our own personal preferences when putting the thing together.
Hey, it's realistic.
Yeah, it's a fine line there between, putting someone in a pink t-shirt and then suddenly I'm forcing Adam to make all toilets visible. This is not a.
We've done the research.
No.
I do have photographs. I did get a lot of looks, but
All right,
have...
let's be serious again. Andy Bat is asking, do we get money off for already owning NEC from before? No, because it's not the same NEC. It's rather like talking about the West Coast Main Line, or any other major route in a country. We've got one section of it that was previously called NEC. This is a wholly different section. So as much as it's part of the same network, it is completely divorced from what came before. What you do get, however, if you've already got NEC, is you can go and play NEC. So you've lost nothing, and this is an entirely optional extra, but the two are completely separate things in terms of route build and everything else that goes into it. Yeah, but also it's American Passengers. They're back again. There we are. All right, okay. I think that's going to wrap it up for today. I've got one more question to answer, but we know you've got a ton of questions, particularly relating to Rush Hour, and we will answer them all, just not today. We've got plenty of time to come, and we've got plenty of time to answer those questions. And we will do. The last question is the one I half anticipated we'd see first, is why did we accidentally release this over the weekend? Because someone did not press the make private again after allowing everybody to preview it from inside the building. That's all that happened. No lives were lost. It's all fine. These things happen, and as it turned out, it gave you an extra couple of days to chew on things and queue up some questions, which was actually very helpful for us. So yeah. I think next time we do a major announcement like this, we'll say, how about you make it a couple of days before a stream so that they can, chew on it, digest it a little bit, because that was actually jolly helpful. Yeah, I know. You got a sneaky peek that you weren't expecting, and a couple of days of speculating about whether it was real or not, and we got your questions ahead of time. Win. No, they haven't been given a pay rise. And neither have they been ejected from the build. Someone was suggesting that they were going to be sacked. And you kind of go like, I don't want to work for your company. Flipping it where someone's not allowed to make an innocent mistake. Deary me. There you go. That's it. All right. Thanks very much for tuning in for this one. It's jolly good fun. We know we haven't answered everything. If you think there is something especially pertinent that we haven't answered, fling it over on the forums and we'll get you an answer for it. If it is especially, but if we agree with you that it is especially pertinent, we'll get you an answer. Thank you, Adam.
One final reminder. Sorry, the Peninsula Corridor and Oakville Subdivision. That is what the Preserve crew will be looking at next. So yeah, thank you everyone. Already. Yeah.
If we spent the entire stream answering questions we answered early in the stream, we would be in some kind of infinity loop, which if we did it fast enough, we'd probably reverse time. Get some discipline. I know you're being friendly, but I have to rule with an iron fist on this one. Shut up. You've had your piece. You had your opportunity to say goodbye, but you're not having it anymore. Matthew, thank you very much for joining us this evening. It's been a delight having you as a guest. You're at least well behaved.
Yay, I win.
Good. Thanks very much for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow. Are you works? No. What's happening tomorrow? Anyone
Tomorrow
know?
will be Wednesday, which I imagine is going to be myself and Jamie doing some workshop stuff.
Did not one of us look to see what was on the show tomorrow?
No,
all right, hang on, I'll look now. No, it's all right. No, it's in the announcements forum, and unless Mike gets there first, and he loves doing that because makes me feel incompetent. It's Workshop Wednesday with Jamie and Matt, and no clues have been given. And given that Jamie never tips you off about what he's making you play, then that's...
Well, he plays it. He plays it, to be fair, and I just sit and,
you sit and pontificate.
Yeah, I comment.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
And judge. I judge harshly.
Thanks very much for watching. We'll catch up with you very soon. And cheerio.
See you, everyone. Thanks a lot.